Hello, it's Jim Hutchins for the Jerusalem Connection Spot Report for this week. Just the other day I received an email from a very dear rabbi friend of mine, and he alerted me to an issue that's been whirling around the liberal Protestant denominations in this country for some time, and that's the issue of BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions. And he made me aware, I wasn't aware of this, that the Presbyterian Church USA, the PCUSA, will be considering this issue and voting on it during their General Assembly at the close of this month in June. And we have a letter in this e-newsletter we're sending to you that includes a spot report, that I'd love to have you take a look at this. And if you feel so inclined, and I would certainly encourage you to consider this, to sign a petition. It's a letter in hope that's being sent to the Presbyterians, the Presbyterian Church USA, about this BDS movement. What is the BDS movement? Basically, it was formed in 2001 at the UN Conference Against Racism in Durham, South Africa. And it was marked by repeated expressions of anti-Semitism by these NGO or non-governmental organization activists. And I must say, as I read this, I was reminded of Martin Luther King's statement that when people criticize Zionists, they mean Jews. You're talking about anti-Semitism. Martin Luther King Jr. said that. And I agree with him. I think that's that the BDS movement is a veiled attempt to express anti-Semitism. The BDS movement deliberately draws a false parallel to South Africa. According to the BDS proponents, if South Africa were worthy of a boycott and sanctions campaign that eventually led to the downfall of that despicable system, quote, Israel should be subject to the same kind of attack, leading to the same kind of result. The letter, it's entitled Letter in Hope, and once again I hope you'll sign this. I think it's a worthy effort. I've signed it, and we're encouraging all of our people to do it. I just want to read a couple of excerpts from this letter itself. For example, a policy of divestment to pressure Israel is a one-sided approach that damages the relationship between Jews and Christians that has been nurtured for decades. It promotes a lopsided assessment of the causes of and solutions to the conflict, disregarding the complex history and geopolitics involved. Furthermore, it shamefully paints Israel as a pariah nation solely responsible for frustrating the peace. Say nothing about the suicide bombers and the thousands of rockets that have been sent in from Gaza by Hamas and Islamic Jihad and others. The BDS movement, many of the major proponents of divestment do not support Israel's right to exist. They shouldn't even exist, thus deepening this fear. Divestment as a policy is more likely to encourage those with more extreme aims than to foster reconciliation. Simply put, the bitter debate over divestment drowns out the real conversation about how to end the conflict. And then finally, quite honestly, were American Christian denominations to indict only Jews in Israel for the conflict with the Palestinians, they would justify the violence perpetuated against Israeli citizens, including children, as the unfortunate result of Israel's unilateral guilt. In other words, Israeli victims would be responsible for their own suffering. Frankly, such a representation is anything but an expression of friendship and common purpose, and it would replace the closeness and comfort the Jewish community feels in existing relationships with distance, distrust, and disappointment. I couldn't help but think of Jesus' words with regard to the truth. He said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free." This is God's truth with regard to Israel. It's encapsulated in multiple statements by the prophet. Jeremiah says this in Jeremiah chapter 32, verse 40 and 41. I will make an everlasting covenant with them, the Jews. I will never stop doing good to them. I will inspire them to fear me so that they'll never turn away from me. I will rejoice in doing them good, and I will most assuredly plant them in this land with all my heart and soul. That is the truth of God with regard to Israel. Please go to our letter in hope, sign it, so that the PCUSA can know that the BDS program is not for believers in the Scriptures. Till next week, Od Ki Yavo Shiloh, or until Messiah comes, Shalom Aleichem.